I guess Max Freedom Long in the 50s was writing about it.
Okay.
And
I don't know. You can't address that, Graham.
Almost certainly does involve the shamanism. The ancient religion of Hawaii and of many of the islands in the Pacific did do so.
I learn something on this show every night.
Yeah.
Every night. East of the Rockies, you're on Coast to Coast. Hi there.
Hi, George. It's a privilege to speak with you. My name is Peter. I'm calling from Pulaski, New York, from WSYR, Syracuse. I am officially the president of Eastern Shore Chapter Paranormal. And Mr. Graham, you hit a nerve with me.
Thank you.
I've been a researcher for over 25 years of the paranormal.
Yes.
I am known as a ghostbuster. It seems like these entities cross over to this dimension, not us going over there. Anybody can take hallucinogenic drugs, and I don't advise it, because that
Have you taken ayahuasca or any hallucinogen yourself?
Yeah, many years ago I took marijuana.
But that's not
and it caused me.
That's not a hallucinogen. I'm just wondering on what basis.
No, I'm under the
basis you don't advise that people acquaint themselves with a 10,000-year-old religious practice.
Why? Because it opens one's person up for an entity to take over a body. It's called possession.
No, in my experience, that is not the case, unless the individual is unfortunately mentally compromised in some way, perhaps a schizophrenic, in which case I definitely wouldn't advise taking any hallucinogen. If the individual is normal and sane and balanced, they will emerge from the experience normal and sane and balanced, and it's complete nonsense that normal, sane, balanced individuals can be tipped over the edge by hallucinogens. They can't.
Are you speaking on a religion, or are you speaking scientifically?
Well, I'm speaking scientifically. On the observation of studies of hallucinogens, they do have bad effects on people who are already mentally damaged. But for those of us who are sane and balanced, they do not have effects. And as the point of view of a religion, we have to understand that shamanism is the oldest religion on our planet, and we must not fall into the Western mistake of despising it. And we must realize that shamans have always cultivated altered states of consciousness, and the time-honored and respected method for doing that are the use of certain plants that have co-evolved with us. Of course, there are other methods as well, but we shouldn't just despise that. We should recognize the value and the validity of shamanic experience. One of the big mistakes in the West is that we just write off a whole religious culture because we don't like the way it does things.
You know, another reason why the governments aren't allowing these substances could be because they haven't decided how to tax it yet.
Well, yes, that may indeed be the case. I mean, personally speaking, I can't think of any other area of public policy where, other than the war on drugs, where policies that have absolutely failed, that completely failed to achieve their objectives. Drugs are awash in our society today. I can't think of any other public policy that has been maintained for more than 40 years, that has had billions of dollars plowed into it, that has so spectacularly failed to achieve its objectives and yet still gets billions of dollars plowed into it. It just doesn't make sense to me. It's a completely crazy system, but we must distinguish between different kinds of so-called drugs. And these sacred and ancient plants that have been used by shamanic cultures all around the world for tens of thousands of years, these have been field tested on human beings throughout our history with no ill effects. And it's time that our governments and those of us who are prejudiced towards them realize this. And at the very least, we should not despise the shamans for what they do. They just may know something that we don't know.
Yeah, it's too bad that with the ayahuasca, what we have to go through in order to get into that state.
Well, I think the physical effects are very important, actually. I found it very difficult at first to sit down amongst a group of villagers in the Amazon, drink this foul-tasting brew, and then find myself afflicted with diarrhea and vomiting, basically in a public setting. I mean, this went against everything that I, as a Westerner, have been conditioned to. You know, we like to keep our toilet habits very private in the West. But what it taught me is that I'm placing far too much importance influence on my own body and on the processes of my own body, and that really what is the essence of me? It's not my stomach. The essence of me is my brain, is my consciousness. And that is the beautiful experience, the challenging, the thought-provoking, the deeply enchanted and mysterious experience that ayahuasca offers us. And if the price it charges for that is a little bit of nausea and diarrhea, then I'm certainly prepared to pay it.
Do you have to hold your nose when you're drinking it down?
It helps very much to have a lemon nearby, and just after drinking it, to take a little bit of that, just to nibble on that lemon and have a little bit of lemon juice. It kind of neutralizes the bad taste in the mouth. The smell of ayahuasca does even now make me gag, even if I'm not going to drink it. Even thinking about it makes me gag. But so remarkable are the experiences, and so healing have been its effects on me. For example, I have been a lifelong sufferer from the most catastrophic migraines, sometimes as many as 20 migraine headaches a month. Since I worked with ayahuasca, my migraines have stopped entirely. I don't have them anymore, completely gone, and that's such a gift from the plants. I can't thank the spirits of the plants enough for freeing me from that pain.
Let's go west of the Rockies. You're on the air with Mr. Graham Hancock. Hi there.
Good evening, George. Congratulations on the book.
Oh, thank you.
And you've made me a night bird, even though everybody tells me I should get to bed by 10.
No.
And I wanted to ask Graham. I've studied shamanism a little bit with Michael Harner, and
yes.
I've never taken ayahuasca, but I had an experience this year that I wonder if you could help me. Sounds very much like what you're talking about. I became really very ill because of a toxic exposure to mold in an apartment. It's another story, but
yeah.
Really, I became very sick, and I was desperately trying to move out, and it became worse and worse until I started to hallucinate for 3 days. Now, mold is a plant-like substance.
Yes.
And they're also using it in biowarfare.
Mold is, of course, a fungus.
Well, I had no idea that it could make you hallucinate.
Well, let me tell you that ergot, which is also a mold, which is also a fungus, is the basis of LSD. LSD was synthesized from a mold, from the ergot fungus, and indeed in the fungus family, we find huge numbers of hallucinogens. It
was amazing because I was hallucinating, but I was still in the same, consciousness that I could still function, so to speak. But I was aware that there were like messages, like all these, like what you're talking about, lessons coming through for me about what I had to do in life. But the strangest thing, I did see a doctor who was one of 2 specialists in the U.S. on this, and he said, oh, yes, hallucinations are very common with this, and I had not read that anywhere before. But I asked him about a hallucination I had for 3 days. Every time I opened my eyes, I saw black handwriting, script handwriting, like medieval handwriting, everywhere in my visual field. And
very interesting. That's very common with DMT, by the way.
Is it? That's what I wanted to ask you.
Is to see scripts, and often as one is looking at this script rolling before one's eyes, one can't actually read it, but there's a sense, nevertheless, that information is being conveyed into the brain. It's like downloading a huge quantity of information that you might need years to integrate into your life, but the information is there on your hard disk, as it were.
Is that what happened? Because when you said before that this is written in our DNA, that's what prompted me to call.
Well, yes, this is an area we've not had a chance to get into too much in detail in the conversation tonight, but it is another explanation for why people all over the world, and going back 35,000 years in history, all record the same experiences with the same supernatural beings in altered states of consciousness. Either these things are a freestanding, free-existing spirit world, other dimensions, and that's actually the view that I favor, or in some mysterious manner they have been written on our DNA since life first mysteriously arrived on this planet 3.9 billion years ago, and that DNA has been in all life ever since, awaiting the evolution of a creature that was capable of reading the message inscribed on it, and that creature is us.
It was fascinating because as sick as I was aware that I was into another frequency.
Yes.
And I kept thinking, wow, this is absolutely amazing. I have to research this after I get better,
Good for you, because most people are just so frightened by these experiences that they don't want to touch them again. And in fact, what we really ought to do is say, here is a whole other realm of human experience. It may be very valuable, and we need to explore this realm. and find out what it means to us. And that is the view of shamans. So I would say you're on your first step to becoming a shaman. And you say you worked with Michael Harner. Of course, Michael Harner worked with rhythmic drumming, but also with ayahuasca.
Let's go to our